Well, I mean, that's
love
basically
your job. That's number one.
That's how it started. Absolutely. And so,
no, people are number one, I think, for you, and then the job after that.
yeah, yeah.
You're a people person.
Yeah, well, I
can
hope
see it
to
in
be.
your eyes.
Yeah, I hope so. It does. It helps. So that's what we do. So the company is Vision Credit Services, and so what we do is we help consumers, not so much on the business of side of it, but more on the consumer side of it.
Right.
And we help people understand, like I said, the principles of good credit management, and we do that through consulting as well as activities. So we prepare.
Now, consulting, people come to you and talk to you about their problems for the money, or what?
Well, yes. I can answer
I have
that.
to know. Okay,
I can answer that pretty quick.
okay.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, you know, once you get known for doing something, people tend to call. So people call me, and it may not really be a credit issue. It could really be an overall financial issue. And so
You do freebies over the telephone?
I do freebies over the telephone.
Okay.
I do a free consultation. And it helps me to understand whether or not someone could really benefit from our service. We won't just enroll people. We don't just take people's money. We really want to make sure that our program is set up where it can help people. And I'll tell you, Angie, probably 2 or 3 times out of a day, out of the, you know, the free consults we're doing, we won't enroll them. We'll just tell them, if I can tell you in 10 minutes what you can do to impact your credit, I'm going to tell you that. And I'm not going to take your money. It takes too much time to enroll you in a program. If I can just tell you real quick what you can do.
Right.
So that's sort of
What
the
do you
premise
do in
of
the
what we do.
program for them? What do you do?
So in the program, as a client of ours, we provide, up front, we'll do a personal plan. Because as you know, everyone's credit restoration program can be different things we tell people to do. So we provide and we do a personal plan for everyone, and then we work with them on some of their creditors if we have to negotiate payment arrangements or anything like that. And then I think one of the biggest things is they have ongoing access to us. So they could pick up the phone and call me a year later and ask a question, and I don't bill for that because I'd rather have someone stay on target than to have someone make a decision that may get them off the path. And then we have some other activities that actually help them on the credit repair side as well.
Now, if someone's going through bankruptcy, can they establish credit again later?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. One of the key things with bankruptcy...
I always thought if you go through bankruptcy, you're ruined for the rest of your life.
No, there's no decision that you make other than probably something that will put you behind bars that could ruin your life. And that's not even, it depends on even that. There's restoration from those kind of decisions.
Really?
But certainly on a credit perspective, credit after divorce, I think we kind of got off on a little bit.
Yeah, we did. We didn't talk too much on that.
I'll tell you about, when you're going through a divorce, the biggest thing to protect your credit is to make sure that you have everything defined after the divorce or during the divorce. Meaning if you have any joint accounts, sell them, refinance them.
What do you mean by sell them? So you don't have the
if
money
it's
to
an
sell
asset,
them.
I'm saying if it's an, let's say you have a car and or a house or anything like that.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is to resolve any joint credit, because when you're going through a divorce, the judge has jurisdiction over that courtroom, not your creditors. So if you, finish up a divorce or you have where one of the spouses is mandated to pay a debt and they don't pay, the only thing you could do is take them back to court and have the judge slap them on the wrist and do whatever they need to do legally. But in the meantime, your credit is impacted.
Being destroyed.
Absolutely, because they didn't pay. So unless you are going to be willing to pay a debt that you may not legally have to pay, then my advice would be to get it resolved. So that you get it out of your name.
My advice is to have separate credit cards too.
Well, that's why I said in the beginning it's important to maintain and build credit.
Yes, it is. Because I have my separate cards, and whatever I charge, I pay myself, and that makes it really nice.
Well, and that's absolutely a plan.
It works
there's a
for
financial
me.
plan.
It doesn't work for
absolutely.
everybody. For me, that works.
Absolutely, absolutely. But if you do enter into a divorce and you have joint assets or joint liabilities more so, then it's important to get those resolved. Unless, like I said, unless you find out that your ex is not paying the car and you're willing to pay the car to salvage and protect your credit, then by all means do that.
Do that to save it.
But if you're not sure, because I've seen people that won't pay it just to hurt you.
Really?
And you can't run back to the judge, unfortunately. Your creditors don't care
So
about
what
that.
you're saying is if you go in the court and you're going through a divorce, you should have everything laid out, I would say. Open up your brain.
Yeah.
That's what I always say. Do that and then sit down. You can have a nice talk with your husband.
Oh, absolutely.
It could be your ex-husband to be. It's better to be nice than be angry.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Absolutely. Well, protection, which is all part of a plan, right? You need to have a plan.
Yes.
And then you need to be prepared. because if you don't have a plan, then that everything can fall apart. But even if you have a plan, but you're prepared to take on that debt, if that spouse can't or won't pay it, then you're fine.
Then can you have it?
Well, it's already in your name, so it's already a joint account.
Okay, so your husband and wife's name, both of them. And if he defaults on it, you can go to make the payments, but is it going to be on your shoulders forever like that?
Oh, yeah, as long as it's a joint account. That's why I was saying the creditors, all they know about is when you were married, you entered into a joint obligation. And so you were equally responsible for that debt. The fact that you got divorced and the judge says that one spouse has to pay for it means nothing to the creditors. As far as they're concerned, you're equally responsible for that.
Even though you didn't know nothing about it.
Well,
that's scary.
Yeah, well, hopefully, married couples are not entering into a lot of, credit or debt without each other knowing about it, but absolutely.
I have some friends, I always tell them, our brain only sees what our heart wants to feel. So what you see with your eyes, you're not looking with your brain. I think you should know someone for quite some time. Let's talk about foreclosures. That's one of the questions one of the gentlemen asked me. If you foreclose on your home, can you get credit later on?
Oh, absolutely.
Even though they snatch your home, you have nothing, you can still get something back?
Absolutely. Now, you may not get it next month, okay? But credit, one of the best things about credit is that credit can be restored. And that's why I tell people, no.
I am really in the dark about the money deal because I make sure my bills are paid even 2 weeks before time. So if you screw up, you can come back and
you have another chance. Absolutely.
I'll be darned. That's good
you have another chance. And that's why actually, after a bankruptcy.
That's why you're so smart, Chris.
Well, look,
you're like an encyclopedia. You have the most wonderful answers to what I ask you.
Well, I think this area for me, it is so refreshing because that's what I tell people. Credit doesn't define who you are. It doesn't mean that's not your identity. It's what other people think about you, and in some cases it will determine whether you can get something that you want or not. Absolutely. It's important. Credit is very important, but it doesn't define who you are, and it's not permanent. So as long as you know what to do after a foreclosure, it depends. Obviously, a foreclosure means you didn't uphold your end of the bargain, you didn't pay your debts, right? So it's not the foreclosure that really affects your credit. It was the late payments that led up to the foreclosure. So
but that's your responsibility.
It is, but things happen. Things happen. So we know everyone may not have the privilege to be able to get a debt and then be able to pay it.
But then you should think twice about before going and doing it.
Well,
if you can't afford it,
absolutely.
Look at that paycheck and you don't have an extra $25, you walk out that store.
Well, absolutely. You definitely should enter into credit only when you can. We talked about this on the last show. Credit is something that you should do, but you have an option. Right? I can pay cash for this if I want to, but there's some big ticket items like houses. Most people don't pay $500,000, but even if it happens, and let's say you have all intentions and you're doing well, but you lose a job or you lose a spouse, which is what's happening to a lot of people. It's not that they woke up one morning and said, you know what, Mr. Mortgage, I'm not going to pay you anymore.
Right.
So things happen. So if your home is lost to foreclosure, the good news is that you can buy another house in 3 years. Not 7, not 10, not 20.
So only 3 years?
In 3 years, you can buy another house. And in that 3-year period, while you're waiting on the guidelines that says that you can buy again, of course, if you have cash, you can buy anything you want, but we're talking about financing.
We're talking about real people.
While you're waiting in those 3 years is to reestablish credit. You can't necessarily, you may not necessarily have that house go away, but get some positive credit reporting on you, and then focus on some of the other things around the home, and you'll see that you'll be able to get back on top. But you got to do something. So take the first step and do something about it, and not wallow in it and think that I'll never be able to have again. Get into a rental or something that you can afford. Get in a better position.
It's even hard to get a rental these days if you've had foreclosures.
Well, it's hard in some respects, but there's a lot of rentals out there. Think about it. There's a lot of people, and people have to go somewhere. So all of the houses that people are losing to foreclosure, they've got to go somewhere. And so now is probably a better time than it would have been in the past because more people are they're more sensitive to that situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It may just be that you you got into something, and like I said, you lost your job, and so during that time period, you weren't able to pay your mortgage, but you're employed again. And people will see that, prior to that hardship, you had a good payment history, and then they'll be more trusting.
But I've known several people of my own, I know, that when the what's it called, this thing, when the tough get going, the going gets tough or something like that, he spent a lot of money on drinking. And what money he could have made to maybe save that home, it was drinking.
Yeah.
So a lot of people just go inside themselves with the pain, and
Absolutely.
they don't think they're going to get out. They don't know how to get out.
Absolutely.
So that's why I had you come back, because there was a lot of folks that called me. They really put their faith in you. They really did.
Yeah.
You should be very, very, you should feel good about that.
Oh, well, I do, absolutely, and
mean
thank you
that.
for having me back. I'll
But
tell
the
you,
point-
the biggest thing that we have to do is understand when the tough gets going.
The going gets
Yeah,
tough.
the going gets tough, but we can overcome that. And, not to let it take you out. It doesn't have to take you out. Maybe it means an adjustment or a change. You've got to be flexible to change. I've
But don't run for the whiskey bottle.
You don't do that, and just readjust yourself. You just kind of readjust yourself, look at it, life again, and say, okay, how can I do this again, but do it maybe better? Maybe make some different decisions. Let's be accountable for the decisions that we made, because sometimes it may have been that we didn't make a good decision.
Right.
So we learn from that, and we get back on our feet, and we keep moving forward. That's what's important.
So if you've lost your home, I want to go back to the foreclosure, and you want to
Absolutely.
get a rental, how long does it take for someone to even run a place if you've lost your own home?
Well, a rental is really, that's a quick transaction. You find.
Well, I have a feeling if that ever happened to me, thank God, knock on wood, it's not going to if I can help it. But I would feel so embarrassed about going to get a place. I need a place.
Yeah.
Well, Angie, you can't move here because you don't have good credit.
Yeah. Well, the landlords are probably going to look at the credit, but that's where you got to tell the story. And that's what I was
How you
saying.
got to where you are now and
Absolutely.
how you want to come back
Absolutely.
later.
And that's what I was saying, that today's market's a little different because you've got 1 out of 3 homes in foreclosure. So it's a lot of people with a similar story versus if this were 20 years ago and you foreclosed, you may have been sort of you were definitely the minority.
That was in the old days, right?
Yeah, that
Everything was
was
so different.
Yeah, people a little bit, but I'm not saying that they're going to completely just disregard a credit report. They're going to still look for a credit report. And that's why it's important that, if there was something that happened that isolated in a home, sort of deal with that. Don't put your head in the sand. There are a lot of great programs that are out here for people
Such as?
in distressed situations. Home Free USA
Home Free
is
USA, okay.
a local nonprofit that works with current homeowners who are struggling in order to, maintain their home. So great nonprofits that are doing good things. There are a number of them.
Well, you're
that are in
doing the best
area.
thing. They ought to contact you.
Well, they absolutely contact me, and if it's an area that I'm not an expert in, like I'm not a bankruptcy attorney,
I know
and
that.
I tell people, in advance, I'm not a bankruptcy attorney. You need to go seek professional counsel in different areas. I'm not a divorce attorney either.
That's true.
So,
That's true, but you know a lot about it.
But we want to make sure that we have, appropriate counsel. But I am there to try to help, and I know a number of people in my network. So if I can't help, I can always get people, to the right location.
I've been noticing also now that when young people buy homes, 2 and 3 families buy the one house. And when that happens, that's not quite right, because I know of 4 people that's just done that recently, and they're already getting foreclosed on. They think when they go, instead of having the whole payment divided,
Right.
it gets thrown on one person's shoulders.
Right. Well, that's just like anything else. It's a business decision. You got to make a good business decision. Collectively, I don't think there's anything wrong with people coming together and building each other up. I
Right.
think that's something that's missing
Health is
in
very good.
today's
Self-help is
community.
good.
Right.
Yeah.
But you still got to make a good business decision.
You do.
And buying a home in some ways, especially if it's a collective transaction like that, where you have multiple people.
That's the biggest choice you're ever going to have in
That's
your
a big-
lifetime.
yeah, do you
Besides
wanna-
saying I do,
Right.
then
You're kind of married to them.
That's right.
financially.
You're married to
You're
them,
married
you
to
get
them.
paid
So
off.
is that a good
Yeah.
decision that you're making?
This has been really fun again. Do you believe our
Oh,
time
the
is
time
already
goes by so
up?
fast.
I know. We should have a glass of wine over here, and we could really get down and talk about
Yeah.
it. But I hope I get a lot more phone calls. Now I hope they all go to you.
Well, can I
Go
can
ahead.
I share with them how to
Share with
find
them.
us?
We've got a few
Good.
seconds.
Good. Well, they can locate us either on the web at www.visioncreditservices.com or toll free at 877-896-2831. And I welcome your listeners and viewers to call.
My show has come to another 30-minute end, and it just goes so fast. But I really, really applaud you for coming back
Thank
today.
you.
She's a smart lady, and if you need help, you better darn sight call her. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
To an ugly frown. Seems that when I fix one thing